The crimson sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dusty Arizona trail where Rebecca Nash lay gasping for breath, her pale blue dress stained dark with blood. The year was 1876, and the promise of a new life in Tucson had vanished with the retreating hoofbeats of the three outlaws who had left her for dead after taking everything she owned. Rebecca's trembling fingers pressed against the wound in her side, her vision blurring as she watched the dying light of day. She had been so careful planning her journey west after her parents' passing, using the modest inheritance to seek opportunity in a growing frontier town. Now, as darkness crept across the desert, she wondered if her journey would end here, alone on this desolate stretch of road. "Stay awake," she whispered to herself, her Eastern accent incongruous against the wild landscape. "Just stay awake." The sound of approaching hooves sent a spike of terror through her body. Had the outlaws returned to finish what they'd started? With what little strength remained, Rebecca dragged herself toward a cluster of brush, leaving a trail of blood across the sandy soil. Owen O'Malley guided his chestnut gelding down the familiar trail, returning to his small ranch after delivering cattle to the railroad station in Tucson. The setting sun meant he'd be riding after dark, something he preferred to avoid in territory where Apache raids still occasionally occurred, despite the uneasy peace that had settled in recent years. His horse suddenly pulled up short, nostrils flaring. "What is it, Rusty?" Owen murmured, his hand instinctively dropping to the six-shooter at his hip. 6 years on the frontier had taught him to trust his horse's instincts. The animal pawed nervously at the ground, refusing to move forward. Dismounting cautiously, Owen scanned the area, his experienced eyes picking out details in the fading light. Boot prints in the dust, signs of a struggle, and something darker glistening on the ground. Blood. Following the trail with his gaze, Owen spotted movement among the brush. "Hello," he called, approaching cautiously. "Is someone there?" A weak whimper answered him. Pushing aside the brittle branches, he discovered Rebecca, her face ashen, one hand clutched to her side where blood seeped between her fingers. "Good Lord," he breathed, immediately kneeling beside her. "What happened to you, Miss Outlaws?" Rebecca managed, her voice barely audible. "3 men took everything." Owen quickly assessed her condition. The stab wound looked deep and she'd lost considerable blood. Tucson was too far and his ranch still a good hour's ride. She wouldn't survive either journey without immediate attention. "I'm going to help you," he said firmly, removing his bandana and pressing it against her wound. "My name's Owen O'Malley. I've got a ranch not far from here." "Rebecca," she whispered. "Rebecca Nash." "Well, Miss Nash," Owen said, his voice gentle but urgent. "I need to stop this bleeding before we go anywhere. This might hurt some." With practiced movements, Owen tore strips from his spare shirt and fashioned a tight bandage around Rebecca's midsection. She bit back cries of pain, impressing him with her fortitude. "I'm going to lift you onto my horse now," he explained. "Try to stay still." Rebecca nodded weakly, already slipping toward unconsciousness. With careful strength, Owen lifted her onto Rusty's back before mounting behind her, cradling her against his chest to keep her stable. "Hold on, Miss Nash," he urged, turning his horse toward home and urging it into a careful trot. "Just hold on." Rebecca drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of the steady rhythm of hoofbeats and the strong arms that kept her from falling. Pain radiated from her side with each movement, but the solid presence behind her provided an anchor in the storm of agony. By the time they reached Owen's modest ranch house, night had fully descended. Rebecca was barely conscious, her breathing shallow and rapid. Owen carried her inside and placed her gently on his bed, working quickly to light lamps and gather what medical supplies he had. Miss Nash. "Can you hear me?" he asked, touching her forehead and finding it alarmingly hot. "I need to clean and stitch that wound proper. It's going to hurt something fierce." Rebecca's eyes fluttered open, fever already taking hold. "Do what you must," she managed. Owen had learned basic medical skills during his time in the Union Army, and the frontier had provided ample opportunity to practice. He heated water on the stove, gathered needle and thread, and found the bottle of whiskey he kept for medicinal purposes. "Drink this," he instructed, lifting her head to help her take a swallow. "It'll help with the pain." The liquor burned down Rebecca's throat, adding fire to the already raging heat in her body. She braced herself as Owen carefully cut away the blood-soaked fabric around her wound. The stab was deep, just below her ribs on the right side, but by some miracle had missed vital organs. "You're lucky," Owen muttered as he cleaned the wound. "Few inches to the left and I'd be digging a grave instead of stitching you up." Rebecca tried to smile but ended up grimacing instead. Some luck. The next few minutes were agony as Owen disinfected and stitched the wound. Rebecca bit down on a folded leather strap, tears streaming down her face, but she never screamed. When he finally finished, she was drenched in sweat, trembling with exhaustion. "You're the bravest woman I've met in a long while," Owen said softly, wiping her brow with a cool cloth. "Most men would have been hollering to wake the dead." "Not much point in that," Rebecca whispered. "Dead don't wake, no matter how loud you call." Something in her tone made Owen pause. This woman had known loss before today's violence. He covered her with a light blanket, noting with concern the flush of fever on her cheeks. "Rest now," he instructed. "I'll be right here if you need anything." Rebecca nodded faintly, her eyes already closing as exhaustion claimed her. Owen settled into a chair beside the bed, prepared for a long night of watching over his unexpected guest. Outside, coyotes called to each other across the desert, their mournful cries echoing the uncertainty of frontier life. Owen checked his revolvers and rifle before returning to his vigil. If the outlaws who attacked Rebecca were still in the area, he'd be ready for them. The night passed slowly. Every hour, Owen checked Rebecca's wound and fever, wiping her brow when she thrashed in delirium and murmuring reassurances when she cried out in terror. By dawn, her fever had spiked dangerously high. "Pa, we need the doctor," Owen told his father's photograph that hung on the wall, a habit he'd developed in the 5 years since the old man had passed. "But she can't make the journey to town, and Doc Miller won't reach us before tomorrow even if I ride out now." Making a decision, Owen gathered herbs from his small garden plants his Cherokee neighbor had taught him to use for fever and infection. He brewed a strong, bitter-smelling tea and gently lifted Rebecca's head. "Miss Nash, you need to drink this," he urged. "It tastes awful, but it'll help bring down the fever." Rebecca's eyes opened slightly, glassy with fever. "Mother," she murmured. "No, madam, it's Owen O'Malley." "You're at my ranch. Remember," for a moment confusion clouded her face, then recognition dawned. "The cowboy, you found me." "That's right. Now drink this tea, doctor's orders, though I'm no doctor." Rebecca managed a few sips before turning her head away. "They took everything," she whispered. "My parents' locket, all my money." "Don't you worry about that now," Owen said firmly. "First, we get you well, then we can talk about those outlaws." Throughout that day, Owen tended to Rebecca while also managing his essential ranch chores. He moved quickly between the barn and the house, never leaving her alone for more than a few minutes. By evening, he was relieved to find her fever breaking slightly, though she remained weak and pale. When Rebecca woke more lucidly that night, she found Owen dozing in the chair beside her bed. In the lamplight, she studied her rescuer for the first time. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 30, with sun-weathered skin and a strong jawline partially concealed by a neatly trimmed beard. His brown hair fell in waves that suggested it had been some time since he'd visited a barber. What struck her most were the worry lines around his eyes, even in sleep. This was a man who carried responsibilities heavily. When Owen stirred and found her watching him, he straightened immediately. "You're awake. How are you feeling?" "Like I've been trampled by a herd of cattle," Rebecca answered honestly, "but alive thanks to you." Owen poured her a cup of water. "Your fever's down some. That's good. Think you could manage some broth?" Rebecca nodded, suddenly aware of her hunger. As Owen moved to the stove, she became conscious of her situation alone with a strange man in his home, wearing nothing but her chemise under the blankets. Her ruined dress discarded. Reading her discomfort, Owen spoke without turning. "I've got a spare shirt you can borrow until we figure something else out. And don't worry, I've been sleeping in the barn. My neighbor, Mrs. Littlefeather, will be by tomorrow. She's half Cherokee, makes the best healing salves in the territory, and can help with women's matters." The simple consideration in his words brought unexpected tears to Rebecca's eyes. After the brutality of the attack, Owen's respect and kindness felt almost overwhelming. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Owen brought over a bowl of simple beef broth. "No need for talk of payment. Any decent human would do the same." "I've found decent humans to be rare commodities," Rebecca replied, accepting the broth carefully. Owen studied her for a moment. "You're not from around here. Back east, Boston," Rebecca confirmed. "I was traveling to Tucson to take a position as a school teacher." A shadow crossed Owen's face. "School teacher, the position with Mrs. Hollister," Rebecca looked up sharply. "Yes, how did you know?" Owen sighed heavily. "Mrs. Hollister passed 2 weeks ago. Influenza." "Word went out, but I reckon it didn't reach Boston in time." The news hit Rebecca like a physical blow. Her carefully laid plans, the position she had corresponded about for months, the hope of a new beginning all gone. "I see," she said quietly, setting down the broth with suddenly trembling hands. "It seems luck truly has abandoned me." "I'm sorry," Owen said sincerely. "Tucson's growing fast, though. Once you're recovered, there might be other opportunities." Rebecca closed her eyes briefly. "Perhaps. If I can find a way to support myself while looking. The Outlaws took everything, my savings, my letters of introduction, even my mother's locket." The mention of the Outlaws hardened Owen's expression. "Can you describe them? They might be the same bunch that hit the Miller farm last month." Rebecca shuddered at the memory but forced herself to recall details. 3 men. The leader was tall with a scar across his chin, called himself Bart, had an unusual ring silver with a red stone. The second was younger with yellow hair and rotted teeth. The third was heavyset, barely spoke. Owen's jaw tightened. "Bartholomew Slater and his gang. They've been terrorizing the territory for months. Sheriff can't catch them because they keep crossing between territories." "You know them?" Rebecca asked. "By reputation. They've hit several travelers along that stretch of road." Owen's eyes darkened. "They don't usually leave witnesses." The implication hung in the air between them. Rebecca had been extraordinarily lucky that Owen had found her when he did. "Rest now," Owen said, standing. "We can talk more tomorrow." As he turned to leave, Rebecca caught his hand impulsively. "Thank you, Mr. O'Malley, not just for saving my life, but for your kindness afterward." Owen looked down at their joined hands, a flash of something unreadable crossing his face before he gently withdrew his fingers. "Owen. Just call me Owen." "Owen," Rebecca repeated softly. "And I'm Rebecca." With a nod, he extinguished all but one lamp and left her to rest, closing the door quietly behind him. In the barn, Owen settled into the makeshift bed he'd arranged in the hayloft. Sleep eluded him as he thought about Rebecca Nash. There was a quiet dignity about her that he admired, a strength that had nothing to do with physical power. Even wounded and fevered, she'd maintained her composure. And if he was honest with himself, he found her beautiful not in the flashy way of the saloon girls in Tucson, but with a natural grace that reminded him of the educated women from his youth in St. Louis, before the war and his father's wanderlust had brought them west. Owen shook his head, dismissing such thoughts. Rebecca Nash was a woman in dire circumstances who needed his help, nothing more. Once she recovered, she would continue to Tucson and make her way in the world while he remained here, working the land as he had for the past 6 years. Still, as he drifted toward sleep, Owen found himself hoping her recovery might take a little time. The next morning brought Nara Littlefeather to the ranch, a basket of medicines and supplies in hand. The older woman took one look at Rebecca and shooed Owen from the house. "Men know nothing of tending wounded women," she declared. "Go fix fences or whatever it is you do, O'Malley. I will care for her now." Owen didn't argue, grateful for the experienced help. He spent the day repairing a section of corral that had been damaged in the last storm, all the while keeping an eye on the house. Inside, Nara gently redressed Rebecca's wound, applying a pungent-smelling salve that immediately eased the burning pain. "Owen did good work with stitches," the older woman commented. "Army training shows." "He was in the Army?" Rebecca asked, wincing as Nara's fingers probed the area around the wound. "Union. Young boy then, but came back man." Nara helped Rebecca into one of Owen's clean shirts, which hung like a dress on her slender frame. "He is good man, quiet but good. He saved my life," Rebecca said softly. "I owe him everything." Nara's dark eyes assessed her shrewdly. "Debt is heavy burden, better to call it gift, yes." No one owes life to another. Life is Creator's gift. The wisdom in those words struck Rebecca deeply. "You're very right, Mrs. Littlefeather." "Nara," the woman corrected. "Now you tell me what happened." "Owen says Outlaws, Slater gang," Rebecca nodded, recounting the attack in detail. She had been traveling with the stagecoach, but when it broke an axle 20 miles outside of Tucson, the passengers had been forced to wait while the driver went for help. Rebecca, anxious to reach town before nightfall, had accepted a ride from a seemingly kind trader heading to Tucson. It had been a fatal mistake. The trader had taken her to a remote spot where his accomplices waited. They had robbed her, and when she resisted their attempts to take her mother's locket, the one called Bart had stabbed her and left her for dead. Nara listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly grim. When Rebecca finished, the older woman took her hand. "You survived, that is power. Now you must heal and grow stronger." "But what will I do?" Rebecca asked, despair creeping into her voice. "I have no position, no money, no possessions." "First heal," Nara said firmly. "Then decide. No good decisions come from weak body and troubled mind." After examining Rebecca thoroughly, Nara declared that while the wound was healing well, Rebecca would need at least 2 weeks of rest before attempting travel to Tucson. "I can't impose on Mr. O'Malley for so long," Rebecca protested when Owen returned, and Nara informed him of her recommendation. "It's no imposition," Owen assured her, though he looked tired after his day's work. "The house is plenty big, and I mostly just sleep and eat here anyway." Nara gave him a pointed look. "You will need women's things. I bring clothes tomorrow. My daughter's dress will fit her, and you need help here, O'Malley. Your father would shake head at state of this house." Owen flushed slightly. "I manage fine. HMPH." "Men's idea of fine and women's very different," Nara retorted. "I come tomorrow. Bring medicine and food." After Nara left, Owen prepared a simple supper of beans, cornbread, and coffee. Rebecca insisted on sitting at the table rather than eating in bed, though the short walk left her dizzy and weak. "Nara's right about one thing," Owen said as they ate. "This place could use a woman's touch. My mother died when I was young, and Pa never remarried. We've been bachelor living since I was 10. It's a lovely home," Rebecca said sincerely, looking around at the simple but solidly built cabin. "Your father built it," Owen nodded. "Started it after the war. We came west from Missouri when things got ugly there. Finished it together when I returned from the army." "And he's gone now?" Rebecca asked gently, noting how Owen's gaze occasionally drifted to the photograph on the wall. 5 years ago, pneumonia." Owen's voice remained steady, but Rebecca caught the grief that still lingered. "Left me the ranch. Wasn't much then, but I've built it up some." "You've done well," Rebecca observed. "It's clear you take pride in your work." A small smile touched Owen's lips. "It's honest work. That counts for something these days." As they continued eating, Rebecca found herself studying Owen's hands strong, calloused from labor, yet gentle when they had tended her wounds. There was a steadiness to him that she found deeply reassuring after the chaos of the attack. "Tell me about Boston," Owen said suddenly. "I've never been further east than St. Louis." Rebecca's face brightened as she described her hometown, the cobblestone streets, the universities, the culture and history. She told him about her father, a professor of literature who had filled their home with books, and her mother who had taught piano to the daughters of Boston's elite. "They both passed last winter," she explained, her voice softening. "Influenza swept through the city. After they were gone, the house felt empty. When I saw the advertisement for a teacher in Tucson, it seemed like an opportunity for a fresh start." "And now?" Owen asked quietly. Rebecca sighed. "Now I'm not sure, without the position or my savings." "You could still try Tucson," Owen suggested. "Growing town always needs educated folks." "Perhaps," Rebecca agreed, though uncertainty clouded her expression. "First, as Mrs. Littlefeather said, I must focus on healing." The days that followed fell into a gentle routine. Nara visited daily, bringing clothes, medicines, and food, along with stories that made Rebecca laugh despite her pain. Owen worked the ranch from dawn until dusk, returning to share simple meals and increasingly comfortable conversation. As her strength gradually returned, Rebecca began helping with small tasks around the house, mending Owen's shirts, organizing the pantry, preparing simple meals. She found satisfaction in contributing, in making herself useful rather than merely being a burden. One evening, about a week after the attack, Owen returned to find Rebecca sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket despite the lingering heat of the day. "Should you be out here?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Rebecca smiled. "Nara said fresh air would do me good. And I've been inside for so long, I was starting to forget what the sky looks like." Owen hung his hat on a peg and settled into the chair beside her. "It's a good sky tonight," he observed, looking up at the vast expanse of stars beginning to appear as darkness fell. "One of the things I love about this place. It's beautiful," Rebecca agreed. "So different from Boston. There, the buildings and smoke obscure much of the sky. Here it feels endless." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching as more stars emerged. "I've been thinking," Owen said eventually, "about those outlaws." Rebecca tensed slightly. "What about them?" "Sheriff Bradford's coming by tomorrow. I sent word about what happened. He's been tracking Slater's gang for months. You think he can find them?" Rebecca asked, her hand unconsciously moving to her side where the wound still ached. "Maybe. They've gotten bolder lately. Hitting the stagecoach route was a mistake, brings too much attention." Owen turned to look at her directly. "Would you be willing to talk to him? Tell him what you remember." Rebecca nodded, though the thought of reliving the attack made her stomach clench with anxiety. "Of course, if it helps catch them, I'll tell him everything I can recall." Owen's hand moved as if to cover hers, then withdrew. "Thank you. It might help prevent someone else from ending up." "Well, like you did. Or worse," Rebecca said softly. "I was fortunate you came along when you did." Their eyes met in the growing darkness, and something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of the fragility of life and the unexpected connections it could forge. The moment was broken by a coyote's howl in the distance. Owen stood, offering his hand. "Come on, it's getting cool out here and you're still recovering." Rebecca allowed him to help her up, noticing how he carefully supported her weight without making her feel helpless. It was this balanced strength without domination, care without pity that she found most remarkable about Owen O'Malley. Inside, Owen built up the fire while Rebecca brewed coffee. As they settled at the table, Rebecca spotted a book lying open nearby. "Thoreau?" she asked, surprised. "You read Walden?" Owen looked almost embarrassed. "My father believed in education, even out here. Said a man's mind needs tending same as his land." "My father would have liked yours," Rebecca said warmly. "He believed books were windows to worlds we might never see otherwise." "Smart man," Owen agreed. "Though I reckon seeing things firsthand has its advantages too." "Is that why you came west?" Rebecca asked. "To see things firsthand," Owen considered this. "Partly. After the war, Missouri wasn't home anymore. Too many old hatreds, too much bitterness. Pa wanted a fresh start. I was just a boy following his father. And now, do you ever think of going elsewhere? This is home now," Owen said simply, gesturing to encompass the ranch. "Built it with my own hands. Can't imagine leaving it." There was a certainty in his voice that Rebecca envied. Her own future had never felt more uncertain. "What about you?" Owen asked. "Will you go back east if Tucson doesn't work out?" Rebecca shook her head slowly. "No, there's nothing for me there anymore. My parents are gone, our house sold to pay debts. I came west to build a new life." "I still intend to do that somehow." "Determination like that will take you far out here," Owen observed. "West respects grit more than pedigree." Rebecca smiled, warmed by his assessment. "I hope you're right." That night, lying in Owen's bed while he slept in the barn as he had insisted on doing since her arrival, Rebecca found herself thinking not of the attack or her uncertain future, but of the quiet cowboy who had saved her life. There was depth to him that contradicted the simple rancher image, a thoughtfulness and intelligence that complemented his physical strength and practical skills. For the first time since the attack, Rebecca felt a flicker of something beyond gratitude toward Owen O'Malley, a warmth that made her both uneasy and curiously hopeful. Sheriff Bradford arrived mid-morning the next day, a weathered man with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He listened attentively as Rebecca recounted every detail she could remember about the Outlaws. "Slater's getting careless," Bradford muttered when she described the distinctive ring. "Used to hide that ring during jobs, getting cocky. You think you can find them?" Owen asked, standing protectively near Rebecca's chair. "Maybe." Bradford made notes in a small book. "Got reports they hit a supply wagon near Fort Huachuca 3 days ago. They're moving south. Army's getting involved now. They don't take kindly to having their supplies robbed." "Will you let us know?" Rebecca asked. "If you catch them," the sheriff studied her with respect. "Yes, madam. Most folks who cross Slater don't live to tell about it. Your testimony could help put them away for good." After the sheriff left, Rebecca felt drained. Recounting the attack had brought back the terror and helplessness she'd experienced. Owen noticed her pallor and insisted she rest. "You pushed yourself too hard," he said, helping her back to bed. "Sheriff could have waited another day." No, Rebecca insisted. The sooner they're caught, the fewer people will suffer. Owen arranged the pillows behind her back. Rest now, I'll bring you some tea. As he turned to leave, Rebecca caught his sleeve. Owen, thank you for everything. His expression softened. No need to keep thanking me, Rebecca. It's what neighbors do out here, look out for each other. Are we neighbors? She asked with a slight smile. I don't recall owning property nearby. A ghost of a smile touched Owen's lips. Figure of speech. Rest now. Over the next few days, Rebecca's strength continued to improve. She began taking short walks around the ranch, initially leaning heavily on Owen's arm but gradually requiring less support. Nara declared the wound was healing cleanly, with minimal scarring likely. You are a strong woman, the healer told Rebecca. Body knows how to mend itself when spirit is willing. By the beginning of the second week, Rebecca was able to help more substantially around the ranch. She insisted on cooking meals, discovering to her delight that Owen was appreciative of even her simple Boston dishes. He, in turn, taught her how to make traditional frontier fare cornbread in a cast iron skillet, biscuits that melted in the mouth, beans slow-cooked with salt pork. One afternoon, Rebecca was hanging laundry on the line outside when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Instinctively tensing, she relaxed when she recognized Owen returning early from checking the northern fence line. Everything all right? She called as he dismounted. Owen nodded, though his expression was troubled. Fence is fine, but I spotted fresh tracks up by the creek. 3 riders moving fast, could be nothing but... Rebecca felt a chill despite the warm sun. You think it could be them, the outlaws, can't be sure, Owen said, leading his horse to the water trough. But I don't like coincidences. They crossed our property line from the north, headed southeast. What should we do? Rebecca asked, unconsciously moving closer to Owen and the safety he represented. Nothing for now, but I'll keep my rifle closer than usual tonight. Owen's gaze swept the horizon. And I think we should both sleep in the house. The implication was clear. He was concerned the outlaws might return, might somehow know Rebecca had survived and could identify them. That evening, the usual comfortable silence between them was replaced by a watchful tension. Owen checked his weapons meticulously, placing his rifle near the door and his revolver on the table beside him. He insisted Rebecca take the bedroom while he slept on a bedroll near the fireplace, positioned to see both the front door and the bedroom should trouble arise. I don't want you to have to kill anyone because of me, Rebecca said softly as they finished a simple supper of beef stew. Owen looked up sharply. I'm not eager to kill anyone, but if it comes to protecting you or this home, I'll do what's necessary. The fierce certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, Rebecca found it reassuring. In her proper Boston upbringing, violence had been something distant and abstract. Here in the Arizona territory, it was sometimes a stark necessity. I know you would, she said. I just hate that my presence might force that choice. Owen's expression softened. It's not your fault those men attacked you, Rebecca. The responsibility for violence lies with them, not you. The wisdom in his words struck her. My father used to say something similar. That we're not responsible for the evil others do, only for how we respond to it. Your father sounds like he was a wise man, Owen observed. He was, Rebecca smiled at the memory. He would have liked you, I think. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the crackling of the fire. Outside, the desert night had descended, bringing with it a profound stillness occasionally interrupted by the distant call of coyotes. What will you do? Owen asked suddenly. When you're fully recovered? The question caught Rebecca off guard. She had been deliberately avoiding thinking too far ahead, focusing instead on daily recovery. I suppose I'll still try for Tucson, Even without the teaching position, there might be opportunities. Owen nodded slowly. It's a growing town. Always need for educated folks. And what about you? Rebecca found herself asking. Will you just continue here alone? Something flickered in Owen's eyes, a momentary vulnerability quickly masked. This is my home. The land needs tending. But is the land enough? Rebecca pressed gently. Owen stood and moved to the window, staring out into the darkness. It has been until now. The simple statement held layers of meaning that Rebecca couldn't fully decipher. Was he hinting that her presence had changed something for him? Or merely acknowledging that solitude, while sufficient, wasn't necessarily ideal? Before she could consider further, a sound outside drew Owen's attention. His posture changed instantly, tension visible in every line of his body. "Get in the bedroom," he ordered quietly, reaching for his rifle. "And stay low." Rebecca moved quickly, her heart pounding as Owen extinguished the lamps, leaving only the dim glow of the dying fire. Through the partially open bedroom door, she watched as he positioned himself beside the window, rifle ready. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then came the unmistakable sound of footsteps on the porch. Owen raised his rifle, aiming at the door. A knock sounded, followed by a familiar voice. "O'Malley, it's Bradford. Don't shoot." Owen relaxed slightly but kept his rifle raised as he approached the door. "Identify yourself proper, Sheriff. It's Bradford. You won the shooting contest at last year's Founders' Day by hitting a can at 50 yards. Now open up before I catch pneumonia out here." Satisfied, Owen unbolted the door, admitting the sheriff in a gust of cool night air. Rebecca emerged cautiously from the bedroom. "Evening, Miss Nash," Bradford nodded. "Sorry to disturb you folks so late." "What brings you here at this hour, Sheriff?" Owen asked, relighting a lamp. Bradford removed his hat. "Army patrol caught up with Slater and his boys this afternoon. There was a firefight near the Mexican border." Rebecca's breath caught. Are they? "Two are dead, the young one and the big fellow. Slater's wounded but alive. They're bringing him to Tucson tomorrow to stand trial." Relief washed over Rebecca, followed by a complicated mix of emotions. The men who had attacked her, who had nearly ended her life, had met violent ends themselves. There was justice in that, yet also a sadness for lives wasted in pursuit of easy gain. "I figured you'd want to know right away," Bradford continued. "Especially after those tracks you reported, O'Malley. Turns out they were heading for the border after hitting the Wilcox place yesterday. Probably crossed your land as a shortcut. The Wilcoxes, are they all right?" Owen asked with concern. Bradford nodded. "Shaken up, but no one hurt. Slater was getting desperate, taking risks, making mistakes. That's usually when outlaws get caught or killed." After providing a few more details, Bradford departed, promising to send word when Slater would face trial. In his wake, the tension that had gripped the ranch house dissipated, replaced by a complex mixture of relief and contemplation. Rebecca sat by the fire, staring into the flames. "I should feel happy they've been caught," she said softly. "But mostly I feel empty. As though their capture changes nothing about what happened." Owen settled into the chair opposite her. "Justice doesn't undo harm, it just prevents more harm from being done." "Is that enough?" Rebecca wondered aloud. "Has to be," Owen replied simply. "We can't undo the past. Only move forward from it." Rebecca looked up, meeting his steady gaze. "And how does one move forward from something like this?" "One day at a time," Owen said. "Building something new, something better." The simplicity and wisdom of his answer touched something deep within Rebecca. In that moment, she realized that despite her education and cultured upbringing, this frontier rancher understood fundamental truths about life that many learned scholars missed. "Thank you," she said softly. Not just for saving my life, but for helping me see a way forward. Owen looked momentarily uncomfortable with her gratitude. You'd have found your way regardless. You're stronger than you know, Rebecca Nash. The way he said her name with respect tinged with something warmer sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. For the first time since the attack, Rebecca found herself thinking not just of survival and recovery, but of possibilities. The following morning brought a letter delivered by a passing ranch hand. It was from Nara, explaining that her daughter had fallen ill and she would be unable to visit for several days. She included detailed instructions for Rebecca's continued care and promised to return as soon as possible. "Will you be all right?" Owen asked after Rebecca relayed the message. "I can ride into town and see if Mrs. Rodriguez might come instead." "I'm much better now," Rebecca assured him. "I can change the dressing myself. Really, there's no need to trouble anyone else." Owen studied her thoughtfully. "If you're sure, but don't push yourself too hard. Recovery takes time." As the days passed without Nara's visits, Rebecca and Owen fell into a new routine. With her increasing strength, Rebecca took over more household duties, finding satisfaction in creating order and comfort in the bachelor ranch house. Owen, for his part, seemed both appreciative and slightly bemused by the transformation of his home. "Never seen those curtains look so clean," he commented one evening, nodding toward the windows where freshly laundered fabric hung. "Didn't realize they were actually white under all that dust." Rebecca smiled, pleased by his notice. "Your mother had good taste. The embroidery is quite lovely beneath the years of neglect." "She made those," Owen said, his voice softening with memory, "when we first moved here, said a house needs curtains to be a home." She was right, Rebecca agreed. "It's the small touches that make a place feel like home rather than just shelter." Owen looked around the room, taking in the other subtle changes: the arrangement of his books on the shelf, the wildflowers in a jar on the table, the general sense of care that now permeated the space. "You've brought something back to this place," he said quietly. "Something that's been missing a long time." The sincerity in his voice made Rebecca pause in her mending. "I've only done what any guest would do to show appreciation." Owen shook his head slightly. "Most guests don't transform a place. They just pass through it." There was a weight to his words that suggested he was speaking of more than just household chores. Rebecca felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the evening's heat. "Perhaps I've simply had more time than most guests," she offered, though she knew it was more than that. In truth, caring for Owen's home had become a way of expressing feelings she wasn't ready to name: gratitude, certainly, but also a growing affection for the quiet rancher who had saved her life. That night, lying in bed, Rebecca found herself contemplating her future with greater clarity than before. In just over a week, according to Nara's assessment, she would be well enough to travel to Tucson. The prospect, which should have brought relief and anticipation, now filled her with a curious melancholy. She had come to appreciate the rhythm of life at the O'Malley Ranch: the dawn chorus of birds, the beautiful desolation of the landscape, the simple but satisfying work of maintaining a home. Most of all, she had come to value Owen's steady presence, his quiet strength, his unexpected depths. The realization that she would soon leave this place, leave him, created an ache distinct from her healing wound. The next day brought unexpected excitement. Owen returned from checking his cattle with news that one of his best cows was about to calve but was having difficulties. "I need to help her," he explained hurriedly. "Could be hours. Don't wait supper for me." Rebecca, sensing his concern, made a quick decision. "I'll come with you." "I might be able to help." Owen hesitated. "It's not pleasant work and you're still recovering." "I'm stronger than I look," Rebecca countered, And I'm not entirely useless on a ranch. My uncle had a farm in Vermont. I spent summers there as a child. Still doubtful but appreciating the offer of assistance, Owen agreed. Together they rode to the far pasture where the cow had separated herself from the herd. Rebecca on a gentle mare, Owen kept for occasional visitors. The cow was clearly in distress, lying on her side, laboring to deliver her calf. Owen quickly assessed the situation. "Breech birth," he explained grimly. "Calf's turned wrong. I'll have to reach in and try to reposition it." For the next hour, Rebecca watched and assisted as Owen worked to save both cow and calf, handing him clean rags, fetching water from a nearby stream, and offering encouragement when frustration threatened to overwhelm him. When the calf finally emerged alive and seemingly healthy despite the difficult birth, the look of relief and joy on Owen's face struck Rebecca deeply. Here was a man who cared passionately about the lives in his keeping, whether human or animal. "You did it," she said warmly as Owen helped the newborn calf find its mother's milk. "We did it," he corrected, glancing up with a rare, full smile that transformed his features. With his hair tousled and his shirt sleeves rolled up, smears of dirt and blood on his forearms, he looked nothing like the polished gentleman of Boston, yet Rebecca found him far more appealing. The realization startled her. When had appreciation and gratitude evolved into attraction? And what should she do about such feelings, with her departure looming ever closer? As they rode back to the ranch house in the golden light of late afternoon, Rebecca found herself studying Owen's profile, memorizing the line of his jaw, the way the sun brought out auburn highlights in his brown hair. "Thank you for your help today," Owen said, breaking into her thoughts. "Most city women would have fainted at the sight," Rebecca laughed. "I'm made of sturdier stuff than that, I hope. Besides, there's something beautiful about bringing new life into the world, messy though it may be." Owen glanced at her with new respect. "You continue to surprise me, Rebecca Nash." "Is that a good thing?" she asked lightly. "Very good," he affirmed, his gaze lingering on her face a moment longer than necessary before returning to the trail ahead. That evening, as they shared a simple meal of cornbread and stew, conversation flowed more easily than ever before. The shared experience had broken down some invisible barrier between them. Owen spoke more freely of his hopes for the ranch, while Rebecca shared stories of her life in Boston and her dreams of teaching. "Why teaching?" Owen asked, genuinely curious. "Seems like a Boston lady would have other options." Rebecca considered the question. "I've always loved learning and sharing that love with others. My father was a teacher, and I saw how he opened minds and changed lives through education. I wanted to do the same." "Noble calling," Owen nodded approvingly. "What about you?" Rebecca asked. "Was ranching always your plan?" Owen shook his head. "Before the war, I thought I might study law. Then the fighting came, and afterward, everything was different. Following Pa West seemed the only clear path." "Do you regret it?" Rebecca pressed gently. "Not pursuing law," Owen considered this, gazing into his coffee cup as if the answer might be found there. "No," he said finally. "This life has its hardships, but there's an honesty to it I value. Every day brings tangible results: healthy cattle, repaired fences, a new calf. In law, victory and defeat aren't always so clear." His answer resonated with Rebecca. She had chosen teaching for similar reasons: the tangible satisfaction of seeing a child grasp a new concept, of witnessing growth and understanding blossom. As the evening progressed, Rebecca became increasingly aware of a shift in the atmosphere between them. Owen's gaze lingered on her more frequently, and she found herself noticing small details about him: the tiny scar at his temple, the way one corner of his mouth lifted slightly higher than the other when he smiled, the surprising gentleness of his calloused hands when they accidentally brushed against hers. When they finally bid each other good night, there was a moment brief but electric when it seemed Owen might say or do something more. Instead, he simply wished her pleasant dreams and retreated to his bedroll by the fire, leaving Rebecca with a curious mixture of disappointment and anticipation. The following days brought increasing clarity to Rebecca's feelings, even as her departure date approached. She found herself creating reasons to be near Owen, asking for his help with tasks she could manage alone, bringing him water in the fields, lingering over meals to extend their conversations. For his part, Owen seemed both drawn to her company and cautious about showing it too plainly. He maintained a respectful distance even as his actions betrayed deeper feelings, picking wildflowers that happened to be along his route home, carving a small wooden box for her to replace the one the Outlaws took, ensuring her comfort in countless small, thoughtful ways. 10 days after the attack, Nara returned to check on Rebecca's progress. The older woman examined the healing wound with satisfaction. "Good," she declared. "Very good. Clean healing, no infection. You are lucky woman, Rebecca Nash." "Thanks to you and Owen," Rebecca acknowledged. Nara's dark eyes studied her carefully. "More than wound has healed, I think. Your spirit is stronger now." Rebecca nodded, unable to deny the observation. "Yes, I feel changed by what happened, not just the attack, but everything after." "Life changes us if we let it," Nara said wisely. "Question is, what will you do with change?" It was the question Rebecca had been asking herself with increasing urgency. What would she do? In 2 days, according to Nara's assessment, she would be fit to travel to Tucson. The stagecoach passed within 5 miles of Owen's ranch twice weekly. He had already offered to take her to meet it when she was ready, but was leaving what she truly wanted. That evening, Owen returned from town with news about Bartholomew Slater's trial. "Sheriff says they'll need your testimony next week," he informed Rebecca as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I can take you to Tucson when you're ready." Rebecca nodded, her heart suddenly heavy. "Thank you. I suppose it's time I moved on. I've imposed on your hospitality far too long already." Owen turned to her sharply. "You haven't imposed. Not at all." The intensity in his voice made Rebecca look up. In the fading light, she could see conflicting emotions on his face, things he wanted to say but couldn't find words for. "Nevertheless," she said softly, "I need to find my way in this new life. I can't stay here forever." "Why not?" The question escaped Owen before he could stop it. He immediately looked away, embarrassed by his boldness. Rebecca's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Owen stood and moved to the porch railing, his back to her as he gathered his thoughts. When he finally turned, his expression was open and vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. "I mean that this place has felt more like a home these past 2 weeks than it has in years," he said quietly. "And that's because of you, Rebecca." She stood slowly, her heart pounding. "Owen, I know it's sudden," he continued, the words coming faster now as if he feared losing courage. "I know you had plans, dreams of teaching in Tucson. I wouldn't ask you to give those up. But I've come to care for you in a way I didn't think possible anymore, and the thought of you leaving—" He trailed off, searching for words. Rebecca moved closer, drawn by the naked emotion in his voice. "I've come to care for you too," she admitted. "More than I should, perhaps, given the circumstances." Hope flickered in Owen's eyes. "Then stay. Not as my patient or my guest, but as more. If you want to teach, the children at the crossing are going without proper schooling. You could make a difference here too." The offer, tentative yet heartfelt, touched Rebecca deeply. Here was a man offering not just his heart but partnership, respect for her ambitions, a shared future. "This is very sudden," she said carefully. 2 weeks ago we were strangers. And now? Owen asked, his voice low. Rebecca considered the question. In some ways, it was indeed too soon for such decisions. Yet the circumstances of their meeting had accelerated their connection, stripping away pretenses and revealing core truths about each other that might have taken months to discover in ordinary circumstances. She had seen Owen's courage, his compassion, his quiet intelligence, his respect for her as an equal despite their different backgrounds. Most importantly, she had witnessed his capacity for care not just in how he had saved and tended to her, but in how he treated his land, his animals, his responsibilities. And now, she said slowly, I find myself reluctant to leave. Not just because I have nowhere definite to go, but because being here with you feels right in a way I hadn't expected. Owen stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him in the cooling evening air. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, just think about it. The stage coach will come again. Rebecca nodded, acutely aware of his proximity. I will think about it, carefully. For a moment they stood there in the gathering dusk, the possibility of a shared future hanging between them. Then, with gentle hesitation, Owen reached out and took her hand in his. His touch was warm, solid, reassuring like the man himself. Whatever you decide, he said softly, know that meeting you has changed my life, Rebecca Nash, for the better. The simple sincerity of his words moved her more than any elaborate declaration could have. Impulsively, Rebecca rose on tiptoe and pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. And you've changed mine, Owen O'Malley, she whispered. You gave me back my life in more ways than one. That night, sleep eluded Rebecca as she weighed her options. The teaching position that had drawn her west was gone, but surely other opportunities awaited in Tucson. Yet the thought of leaving the ranch, leaving Owen, created an ache in her chest that had nothing to do with her healing wound. In just 2 weeks, this place had begun to feel like home in a way Boston never had after her parents' deaths. And Owen had become important to her in ways she was only beginning to understand. Was it too soon to consider staying? Perhaps. But Rebecca had always believed that life's most important decisions were often made not with the head but with the heart. By morning, her mind was made up. She found Owen in the barn, saddling his horse for the day's work. I've been thinking about your offer, she said without preamble. Owen turned, his expression carefully neutral despite the hope in his eyes. And? I'd like to stay, Rebecca said, her voice gaining confidence with each word. Not forever, necessarily. I think we both need more time to be certain of our feelings. But I'd like to stay and explore the possibility of a life here. With you. The smile that broke across Owen's face was like sunrise over the desert, transformative, brilliant with possibility. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, then stopped, restraining his joy out of respect for her still healing body. Are you sure? He asked, searching her face. This is a hard life, Rebecca, different from what you're used to. I'm sure that I want to find out, she answered honestly. The rest we'll discover together. With gentle reverence, Owen took her hands in his. Together, he echoed, the simple word carrying the weight of promise. Rebecca smiled up at him, feeling a certainty that transcended the short time they had known each other. Some connections, she was learning, weren't measured in days or weeks, but in the depth of understanding they created. There's just one condition, she added. Owen raised an eyebrow. Name it. I want to teach, as you suggested. The children at the crossing deserve education as much as those in Tucson. Owen's expression softened with respect and admiration. I'll help you build a schoolhouse if that's what you want. For now, the front porch might suffice, Rebecca laughed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. In that moment, Standing in the golden morning light filtering through the barn doors, Rebecca knew she had made the right choice. The path ahead might not be easy, but it would be meaningful, built on mutual respect and growing love. Owen, his eyes never leaving hers, slowly leaned forward. Rebecca met him halfway, their first kiss gentle and sweet, a promise of deeper connection to come. When they parted, Owen pressed his forehead to hers. "Welcome home, Rebecca Nash." The simple words filled her heart completely. From the ashes of violence and loss had emerged something beautiful and unexpected, a second chance. A new beginning, the foundation of a love built on the solid ground of shared values and genuine care. Outside, the Arizona sun climbed higher, illuminating a landscape that had once seemed alien and now felt like home. Rebecca took Owen's hand, ready to step forward into their shared future, a future neither could have imagined just 2 weeks earlier, when fate and violence had brought them together on a dusty desert road. In the months that followed, Rebecca and Owen built a life together that surpassed either's expectations. The schoolhouse at the crossing became a reality sooner than expected when neighboring ranchers, eager for their children to receive proper education, contributed lumber, labor, and furnishings. Rebecca found fulfillment in teaching, while continuing to make Owen's ranch house into a true home. Bartholomew Slater was convicted on Rebecca's testimony and sentenced to 20 years in Yuma Territorial Prison. The red stoned ring he had worn during the robbery was returned to Rebecca not as a trophy, but as closure to a chapter of her life that had led, against all odds, to happiness. On a perfect spring day in 1877, exactly 1 year after the attack that had nearly ended her life, Rebecca Nash became Rebecca O'Malley in a simple ceremony attended by neighbors and friends. Nara Littlefeather was guest of honor, proudly taking credit for the union. She claimed to have foreseen the moment she first saw them together. As they exchanged vows beneath the azure Arizona sky, Rebecca and Owen shared a private smile, acknowledging the strange and winding path that had brought them to this moment. From violence had come healing, from near death, new life, from chance encounter, enduring love. It wasn't the future either had planned, but standing together on the land they both now called home, neither would have wished for any other outcome. "From this day forward," Owen promised, his voice steady and sure as he slipped a simple gold band onto Rebecca's finger. "Until the end of our days," Rebecca completed, her heart full as she looked up at the man who had not only saved her life, but had given it new purpose and meaning. Around them, the desert bloomed with spring wildflowers, vibrant life emerging from seemingly barren ground, a fitting metaphor for the love that had blossomed in the most unexpected circumstances. And as Owen O'Malley kissed his bride beneath the boundless western sky, Rebecca knew with absolute certainty that sometimes the most beautiful destinations were found on detours from our carefully planned journeys. The attack that had nearly ended her life had instead given her a new one, richer, deeper, and more meaningful than she could have imagined. In saving her, Owen had found his own salvation from loneliness. Together, they had transformed tragedy into triumph, proving that even in the wild and often brutal Arizona territory, love could take root and flourish, bringing healing and hope in its wake. 5 years later, the O'Malley Ranch had grown substantially. 2 children, 4-year-old Thomas and 2-year-old Sarah, filled the expanded ranch house with laughter and energy. The schoolhouse at the crossing had become a community center of sorts, with Rebecca teaching not only children, but also adults eager to improve their reading and writing skills. Owen had been elected to the Territorial Council, his thoughtful approach to frontier challenges earning him respect throughout the region. Together, they had built something remarkable: a thriving ranch, a growing family, and a legacy of positive change in their community. On quiet evenings, sitting on the porch watching the sunset with their children playing nearby, Rebecca and Owen would sometimes reflect on the unlikely beginnings of their love story. "You ever wonder what would have happened if you'd taken a different trail that day?" Rebecca asked once, her head resting on Owen's shoulder. "No," he answered simply. "Some things are meant to be, regardless of the path." And as the Arizona stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky, Rebecca Nash O'Malley knew he was right. Their love had begun in violence and desperation, but had blossomed into something enduring and beautiful, proof that even from the darkest moments, light could emerge, brighter and more lasting than either could have imagined when fate first brought them together on that blood-stained desert road.